I'm passing.
Welcome into another edition of Trust the Process Live. There's a ton to get into. First off, Sixers surviving a 50 ball from the Greek Freak. It was a big game. They were able to get by them. What has been, Max, we'll start with you. What has been the most impressive part of this Sixers four-game win streak?
So I'll say it's their closing. The teams they played haven't been particularly impressive. Obviously, the Bucks yesterday is a statement win for the whole season, let alone for a four-game span. The other three teams were the Pacers, the Kings, and I forget who the team in the middle was, but it was someone not.
Cleveland, I think.
It was Cleveland, yeah, it's Cleveland. So, right, so three team, the Pacers are still a playoff team. They're hanging on for dear life. The other two are young. They're the teams you should be beating. I will say I haven't really had as many heart attacks watching the Sixers over the last 10 to 12 days, which is a better sign than what's been going on most of the season. But I mean, really, it all comes down to what happened yesterday. Those other three games really don't mean anything compared to going into the number one team in the East, potential MVP and Giannis, going in there, putting up 130 in Milwaukee, coming out with a win, not losing the lead once in the fourth quarter, regardless of how close it might have been. Say what you want, the Sixers have been closing the games well.
All right, so closing the game against the Cavaliers, against the Kings. These are teams they're supposed to beat.
Yeah.
The only thing that's been impressive is the fact that they beat Milwaukee on the road. Because the Sixers' Achilles was that they were a decent home team, but they were terrible on the road. To win a statement game where Milwaukee clearly got up to come and play, clearly Giannis brought his A game, okay? Definitely put a stamp on that MVP for this year. And to still pull out and win because Embiid gave just as good of a performance in terms of overall impact on the game. Now, did he jack probably 3 threes too many? Yeah. But he hit the big one down the stretch to put them up enough for them to win. I think the bigger piece is how comfortable guys are starting to settle into their roles. So you've seen Tobias Harris come out, and he's looked more like a player who knows how to get to his shot. He didn't have a huge game yesterday, but he hit when he needed to hit.
He's quietly aggressive. That's how I'm liking to describe him.
And the bigger piece about it is Jimmy Butler took off his lackadaisical, I'm barely here attitude and started to play like the Jimmy Butler they traded for, which is what they'll need if they want to make a deep playoff run.
Yep.
I mean, that's probably been the biggest thing that's looked most impressive. But again, we've also seen the Sixers beat the Warriors and it look terrible for the next 5 to 7 games. So they need to keep it up, especially when they play Boston, because that's going to be a stamp on whether or not they're ready to go to the next level.
Real quick, I've said this multiple times before to you guys, on camera, off camera, we match up very well with Milwaukee in general, and I think that kind of proved it yesterday. No one matches up with Giannis, but you can match up with Milwaukee as a team, and I still would say I would much rather play them than Toronto or Boston.
Losing Malcolm Brogdon hurts them.
Yep, agreed.
He hurts them a lot because he was a key piece of their offense. He was their third, maybe fourth
option.
He
was a key spacing
guy. But he was
guy.
a key spacing guy, and he played good defense.
He made them click very well.
And not having him as a secondary ball handler, somebody who could take a little pressure off Giannis to allow him to play without the ball and do some other things, changes the way they're going to play going forward because he's pretty much done until the playoffs.
Yeah, and the team finally meshing before the game. Brett Brown was talking about the team and how they are meshing. They've only played 7 games. The starting lineup that was out together, only eighth game.
Yeah, it was their 8th game yesterday.
So that being said, Jimmy Butler, you mentioned, has been picking it up lately. Is he someone that the Sixers should give a max contract, or does he deserve it?
Well, I mean, he's damn sure auditioning like he wants a max contract. Do I think he gets it at this point in his career? I don't think he gets a max.
A lot of people interview for jobs they don't get in positions that get put on to others. Look, I've always been a little bit more critical than the average Philadelphian about this Jimmy Butler deal. Like, I'll be honest with that. But let's look at the facts here. You have 3 guys who are more deserving long-term of the money than he is. The attitude issues aren't there or haven't been there with previous team or teams in Tobias Harris's case with the other 3, that being Embiid, Simmons, and Tobias Harris. Jimmy Butler is good. He's an excellent closer. He's great defensively when he tries and applies himself, but you can't commit yourself max money to a guy that is, on the wrong end of where this core wants to be long term. I would love Jimmy Butler for 18 to 20 for 3 more years, but realistically, do I think he wants that when he can probably go to somewhere like, I don't know, like the Bull,
someone who strikes out. Like if New York strikes out, he'll be their big
like he'll be the Knicks' $150 million man for 4 years.
So here's my thing to that, and I'll give you that. But there's a window to win, and every team has a window to win. The Sixers, with the core of guys that they have and the way that their team is set up, has a window to win right now. That window to win is LeBron looks terrible in LA, but they're not going to be terrible forever.
Ooh,
you've got the Warriors, who are a super team, but you're probably going to lose Durant in the offseason. Cousins is going to sign elsewhere. So now they're back to being a Warriors team that's beatable. Depending on how the chips fall, the window for the Sixers to win might be, their best chance to win a title might be in the next 2 to 3 years. I would commit to Jimmy Butler for 5 years if I can win 1 NBA title.
I'm cool
That's
with that.
me. If you think you can go out there and find somebody who has the closer's mentality and the ability to ISO, contribute, and create his own shot better than Jimmy Butler for the next 3 to 5 years, go for it. But there's nobody I've seen that's going to be available. That's why I commit the money.
Come to Philly, Klay Thompson.
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know what you think. If you were the GM watching at home, let us know in the comments what you would do if you would give him a max contract, if you would let him walk. Share the show so other people can tell us as well. But as you mentioned, the Sixers core, it hasn't been their problem. The problem with the Sixers, or a problem with the Sixers, has been their bench depth.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. Mike Scott, James Ennis, two guys who aren't the best players, but on this Sixers team have made a difference. Talk about what they've added to this team.
I mean, they bring stability. You can before 2 months ago, we had no one on the second unit who could even guard anyone on the perimeter. Mike Scott dove 3 rows into the seats to grab a shot of some liquor and save some, make a hustle play yesterday. We didn't have that 2 months ago. Furkan Korkmaz couldn't do either one of those two things, the drinking or the making the play. So it's just seeing those those differences, those are the little things that will add up over time. Right? A play like that in the playoffs, that can be the difference between an 8-0 run or a bucket coming back the other way, a 10-point swing in the grand scheme of things in a 4-point game in the playoffs. You know what I mean? So I think Ennis and Scott, they're not the most fearsome backup wing unit in the league, but they're certainly adequate. They certainly bring the energy, and if even one of them is shooting the 3, well, I think that absolutely makes our second unit at least compatible when it comes to scoring.
So I'm gonna take it another way. I agree that there's been some player upgrades. You forgot about mentioning Boban, who's also been playing well. You still have T.J. McConnell, who's a solid contributor off the bench. The bigger issue is Brett Brown and the rotations. I am not a fan of Brett Brown. I've never been a fan of Brett Brown. This team wins and loses as Brett Brown sets the lineup and he runs that vanilla cupcake, third grade AAU offense out there. That's their problem, because when you got Embiid playing way too many minutes, getting dog tired, you got Simmons in the wrong spots with guys that don't space the floor well, that's where it's going to matter. It's not necessarily the players. It's about putting them in positions to be successful, having the right mix of guys, knowing when to pull guys and when to sit guys.
Quick devil's advocate. We did touch on this. This is only the 8th game with this whole team really all being injured, or not injured, healthy and together. So his rotations haven't been the best consistently, but I will say that there is still a little bit of a wiggle room process considering the players that he has.
He's got about 10 games to get it together.
Exactly, and I would say he's got maybe 5 or 6 more before it's really like, okay, you should know your rotations with all 9 or 10 of these guys by now. If they're still bad, in 6 or 7.
Well, you got to shorten it anyway. So you come to your top 8 or 9 guys. I mean, you saw it with.
But you got to figure out who can play with each other. The key for the playoffs is you have 7 or 8 people that play regularly, but you have to know when to play those 9th and 10th guys.
And that's where Brett Brown will get exposed. I mean, you look at, for instance, Denver, Mike Malone. He said, "Listen, I like Isaiah Thomas as a player, but he doesn't fit my rotation in terms of what I'm doing, shortening my bench for the playoffs." Makes perfect sense. Every coach does it. You have to know when to put guys in, when they need to play, when they need to sit, and get the right mix of guys that are going to put your team in the best position so Embiid can get a spell for 2 minutes without feeling like we're going to be down 23 points when I come back in the game.
Like LeBron on the Cavs.
There it is.
He goes out, it's like 16-0.
Right.
16-0
Teams get excited, like, please tire him out. Please run up and down. Just get him tired so we can go to the bench so we can go on this 88-0 run.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you never really trusted Brett Brown.
No.
And honestly, his credibility I don't think has ever been better than this 4-game stretch. From the start of the season, are you more or less confident in Brett Brown?
My confidence in Brett Brown is the same. I have no opinion of Brett Brown until we get to the playoffs. When he gets to the playoffs and has to make adjustments, when he has to make decisions in timeouts, way to run the offense, preparation, getting these guys ready, when you got to go against the same team who's going to expose your weaknesses, sag off of Ben Simmons and stand about as far as I am from that wall over there, which is about a solid 18 feet away, and let him shoot. What are you going to do to find ways to get him into the game and let him be effective? Because running and dunking, he ain't Giannis. He's good, but he ain't Giannis. Giannis can stand 18 feet away and then run to the hoop and dunk on you anyway.
He did a couple times.
Which he did.
He did
which
a couple
we saw.
times yesterday.
It doesn't matter. Ben Simmons ain't that player. So what you got to do is find ways to let Ben Simmons be effective and a force in the game when teams figure out how to take him out of the game. And that's the difference.
E.T., you're incredibly consistent with your Brett Brown opinions, and for that I will forever respect you. I kind of agree. You can't really, at this point we don't play for the regular season, right? 2 years ago I was hoping for 25 wins. At this point I don't play for the first 82 games. I'm waiting to see what happens in game 83 and beyond, right? I will say that Brett Brown has more tools than he did at this point last year. He has more experience. He probably has a better roster, more talented and more experienced roster. And at this point, it does fall on him at this point. So I'll say he's in a better position to succeed. Whether he does is yet to be seen.
Let me ask you this, because I've heard people say that if the stars align, the Sixers match up well with Milwaukee, they want to avoid Boston. But let's play devil's advocate and say that isn't the case, and they land Boston in the first round. And now they go against a team that they haven't been able to beat at all. They've got about as many wins as you and me versus Boston. Yeah. Okay? So now they play Boston.
One less.
One less. I'll give you the one less. I'm sorry. So now they play Boston. and the Sixers lose in 5 games.
Then he's gone.
That's all I wanted to know.
He's gone. If it's the first, it doesn't matter if it's Boston or not. I think it's the first round regardless. He's gone.
I think they only lose to
if
Boston
they lose in the
first round.
second round, the decision's still up in the air. But if it's first round regardless of opponents,
So then let me ask you guys. You say it's more complete record, and obviously the thing on Twitter is like, oh, the Brett Browns are 0-27, while the Sixers improved to 47-0. Essentially saying,
Sounds about right.
Whenever they lose, it's on Brett. Whenever they win, it's the player's doing well. If the Sixers do lose in the playoffs this year, whether it be first round, second round, whenever it happens, it will be because of what?
Number 25, Ben Simmons.
What about him?
And his potential lack to do anything inside or outside of the three-point arc. And time after time this year, I see teams, to use a soccer term, parking the bus and avoiding 3 seconds and defensive 3 seconds to their best. And it does truly baffle me how, at this point, I don't know if you want to put it more on the coaching staff or him, but we need to do something where, you're right, teams do sag off Ben Simmons to the point where, you don't even see anyone on the screen with him until he's settled and setting up the play. So, look, you can say whatever you want about Brett Brown, and he's a very likely candidate on this list as well. But you see how the floor shrinks in the playoffs, and Ben Simmons has not proved that he can play when the floor shrinks yet. If he can this playoffs, the Sixers will absolutely be a force. And if he can't, then I think that's the X factor.
So, okay, if the Sixers lose in the playoffs, and I use this same mantra, I say it in football, I'll say it in basketball. Anytime a team loses by single digits, it's on the coach. Anytime they lose by double digits, it's on the players.
I like that.
The Sixers will probably lose a lot of close games in the playoffs because of coaching. Decisions, rotations, timeouts, when to take them, when not to take them, play calling, vanilla offense, lack of preparation on defense, and rotations. That will be what will kill them. Nothing else. They've got the talent. They've got the play. Because at the end of the players are going to play. You could take me and you out there, and the Sixers could win 50 games. Because Brett Brown's not doing much to make them
Hey,
good.
we're corner shooters.
Listen, all he's
But
saying
you
is,
here, me
hey,
here? Come
run
on,
this
we can work
bubble
that.
screen at the top of the key and catch the ball and shoot the 3, JJ. That's not an offense. You and I could write that up on a clipboard, okay? That's not an offense. Hey, get out there and play perimeter defense. That's not a defense. Knowing when to call traps, knowing when to get into a zone, knowing when to read certain plays, knowing how to jump passing lanes, that's what going through, watching game film, knowing your opponent, knowing what they like to do, being alert for when you see certain plays setting up, what defense you want to shift to, knowing how to put the right matchups on guys, when to switch on screens. That's all Brett Brown. If he doesn't coach those guys to do that, they're never going to win.
Yeah.
He's got a coach around Ben Simmons too.
So Ben Simmons and Brett Brown
that's part of the
are
problem.
two pillars.
I'm gonna say it's Simmons. Yeah.
So let us know in the comments who you think will be the reason if the Sixers do lose in the playoffs, why that will be. But it's all that we have now for the main event. Time to move on to halftime before we get into a little bit of bracketology. Here's a word from our fellas at Fellow Auto Group.
Shout out to Remy.
Oh, tax returns. Oh, yes. What am I going to do now? I mean, I guess I could go to mom. Oh, but I had parties this weekend. I know. I've always wanted a BMW. My baby, a Mercedes.
Welcome to Philadelphia, where car buying is made simple. No credit? Bad credit? No problem. Come down to one of our 3 convenient locations and speak with our experienced finance and sales professionals. With down payments as low as $4.95, put your tax return to good use with Fellow Auto Group.
That's right, folks. Get on over to Fellow Auto Group, one of their 3 locations, and tell them My New Philly sent you, and you can visit them at fellowautogroup.com to find the closest location and best car for you.
Those are the people right there. Support.
Time to get into business now.
I see a ton of their cars around the city.
Yep.
March Madness, some rapid fire for you guys. First and foremost, who were the biggest snubs, if there were any?
So,
Go ahead.
you know what? I'm going to say this. I don't really have any snubs.
Me neither.
I think they did a really good job this year, which is hard to say.
I would have been up in
Usually don't.
arms if Temple didn't at least have a shot for a playing game, but no snubs.
But what I will say is there was a lot of issues with seeding. You look at the way some of these matchups came out, and there were clearly some seeding issues with where some of the teams came in. Nova, the 6th seed. You got Minnesota playing Louisville, which I think was more of a stick to Patino. There was no need for them to play. Like, it was lots of little things like that I saw where they could have done better.
Florida
being as low
was
as
a
they
10
were.
seed. I didn't like that.
They
Like, I
played
wanted
really
Florida to
good in the
advance, but
tournament.
I couldn't put them over Michigan. I don't
No.
know. Yeah, there were some seeding issues. I will agree. Like, I feel like a lot of the 7-10 matchups were really weird all around. Nova, I thought maybe was going to be a little bit higher. I thought Auburn would be higher than a 5 as well. I have Auburn making a nice run. I don't know about you. But yeah,
You'll see in a minute.
No major snubs. No in terms of like, hey, we didn't get in and should have.
Right.
But maybe in terms of where we ended up getting seeded, whether it be regional or seed number or something like that.
I think the field played out well too. It wasn't a lot of teams that were on the bubble this year. Right. Guys either played and had
Made it
decent
easy
years
for 'em.
or didn't.
Yeah.
Right. It wasn't hard.
Yeah.
So then there is some wonky seeding, possibly. Who do you have making the biggest upset in your brackets that you want to point out?
So I guess this is the token Cinderella question. My Cinderella this year is the 13 seed UC Irvine. They're in Virginia's bracket, whichever one that is. I don't remember what region off the top of my head. Probably South. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't help that 3 ACC teams got in there. I wanted to say East, but that could be Duke, UNC, or them. But anyway, UC Irvine, they have their first round matchup, Kansas State. Second round potential matchup, if the higher seed wins, would be Wisconsin. Sweet 16, if the higher seed wins out, would be University of Virginia. K-State, Wisconsin, and University of Virginia are all, for the most part, notoriously defensive teams. They're going to keep things low scoring. UC Irvine's like one of the top 15 percentage-wise defensive teams in the country. I really think they can keep games close, knock down threes. I really like them as an upset. I actually have them taking down Virginia in my Sweet 16. Noted chokers, the Virginia Cavaliers. They're my first 1 seed to fall. They should be thanking me for even giving them 2 wins after last year's first round, as far as I'm concerned.
So I agree that there will be an upset. I'm going to go with the traditional 5-12 matchup. I love Oregon. I love the way Oregon is played. I think that Oregon's going to come out and they're going to put Wisconsin on the bus home.
I hope Wisconsin wins so Irvine has a better chance. I like them significantly less against Oregon.
Correct. Yeah. I like Oregon. Also, I have 3 7-10 matchups to watch out for. Not as much of an upset, but my first one is I love Florida over Nevada. Florida played such good basketball in the SEC tournament, and they were a team that was getting really hot at the right time. And like hockey plug, listen, it's
Flyers
all about getting
points
hot at the right time is what matters when you get into conference and tournament play. So I like them. And another team, again, I like Minnesota beating Louisville. I think that's a bit of an emotion game. I think that Patino's son is going to come ready to have those guys ready to play because it's going to be sentimental to him for how the university treated him and all the scandals and stuff. And I think the NCAA trying to stick it to him one last time on the way out. It's a great story. Good paper credit, good stuff to write and blog about. So I think Minnesota pulls the upset there and gets past them. Those are my biggest upsets that I saw going through my bracket.
And so now moving all the way on to the Final Four.
Okay.
Who are your guys' Final Four? E.T., you could start.
So since I correctly predicted my Final Four last year.
Did you really?
Yeah. So I'll correctly predict them again this year. I'm going to go Duke, Florida State.
Yes, my man, let's go.
Florida State's bringing almost their entire team back.
Yep.
And they were a team that was battle tested, that played very well last year.
They banged with Duke in the ACC title
I
game.
love Tennessee. I'm a big fan of Admiral Schofield.
If you pick my 4th team the same, I'm going to be extremely.
I don't know. I'm going Kentucky.
Okay, no.
I'm going Kentucky.
I have them in my Elite 8
and the reason I'm going Kentucky is because I like the way they've played lately. They didn't start out super strong, but again, it's all about getting out at the right time. They look good in conference play as well. I think that Calipari always gets top talent, and I mean, minus the 1 year where they just ran through the tournament, they've always had those games where you felt like they could have won, could have lost. I think this is the year to get over the hump, get to the Final Four.
Okay, so my Final Four is, as you could tell by my reactions, me and E.T. are thinking pretty similarly. Duke running away with their region.
Yeah.
I have Florida State winning. I love that region. That one has Michigan in there and Florida State, Texas Tech. I really think that one's going to be a lot of fun. I have Tennessee making it into out of the Virginia bracket, whichever one that is ultimately. I have them beating UC Irvine in my Elite 8, I'm pretty sure. And then from my last bracket, which is UNC's quarter of the bracket, I'm a little biased here as an AAC guy, but the University of Houston has been putting up numbers on people this year. And I know you said John Calipari's boys are hot, but John Calipari's young teams always struggle with defense in the tournament. Sure. I have Houston knocking off Kentucky in my Elite 8.
Okay.
And then for my championship game, Duke over Florida State. It's hard to beat a team 3 times, which I think Duke will be going for in this potential matchup. They're too talented.
I agree.
Tennessee's has been the most rock-solid team probably all year. I saw, I think it was on Twitter yesterday or today, Tennessee started the season at number 6 and hasn't gone lower than 10 this whole season.
So then so you have
I have
Florida State as your team, or Duke as your team?
Duke, Florida State, Tennessee, Houston. Duke over Florida State, Tennessee over Houston. Your Duke Blue Devils. Shout out to Perry List, not with us tonight. He's going to be a happy man. I know he's going to say, "Oh, I put $650,000 on the Blue Devils 8 months ago. I'm rich." He's going to say something like that in a couple
teams
weeks.
of all time. You know that, right?
Doesn't matter. You got the 3 of the 4 best players in the country.
Agreed.
It's like the Warriors. I'm not going to pick against them. And you know what? I'll be if Duke loses, I'll be happy with the 85% of people who picked them as their national champions.
There you go.
Who do you got?
I mean, well, you know my 4 were Duke, FSU, Tennessee, KU. I actually have Duke winning the national title.
Both of you.
Listen, Zion
it's a
Williamson
numbers
makes
game.
such
Exactly.
a difference, dude.
It's a numbers
You
game.
saw the games that they lost in North Carolina, and listen, they got blown out in the game that he didn't play, and then they lost it. Like, he playing just changes the way you have to defend them, and what he does, because he's such a monster, he forces the defense to collapse, which gives guys like Barrett, which gives guys like Reddish wide open looks. I mean, wide open looks.
I will openly admit that, you know, obviously the Zion footage has been flown around for years at this point. I'm a big high school tape doesn't mean Jack Diddley S word, right? So look, obviously the kid's a freak out of nature in high school, but I wanted to see it until he was in college. You know, 5 games in, you can tell that he is absolutely the real deal. Duke is without question the best team in the country when he plays. So I'll take my chances that he doesn't blow out another shoe along the way and pull a groin.
You guys want to know what the correct answer was to that question?
Temple. I know.
Temple Owls,
Yes.
baby.
Goodbye.
That's right. Fran Dunphy running through
You
the
like a good
tournament.
storyline, Temple Owls? One more thing to go along with that. There's one playing team that gets hot every year. Temple Belmont is an 11-seed play-in game. Winner of that game plays Maryland. If Temple wins, Temple matches up really well with Maryland. You might be seeing my Owls make a run.
Public service announcement, say no to drugs, kids.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what you learned from here
All
in
right.
this last 30 seconds.
Also,
Or mumps.
You know,
Temple going
I
through
was
the
going to
mumps.
say this for my tap out maybe, but since we're doing the Say No to Drugs things, we're going to have to go back and listen to our NBA preview show where you told me that the Lakers would be a 3 seed at the All-Star break. We might have put money on that. We might have to dig through some
I
archives.
can't control LeBron getting hurt for the first time in his career.
I
missing
feel like
20
we
games.
might have put a
What do you want
LeBron
me to
injury
do?
stipulation on that, so I want to
Let
check
us
the
know
tickets.
who you have in the Final Four, who you have as your champion. Share the show. Make sure other people can let us know who they chose as well. But now we move on to Upon Further Review. Sean, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Jake. Today on Upon Further Review, producer Aaron Randolph asks, if the Sixers don't re-sign Jimmy Butler, who should replace him?
Yeah, I'm going for Jimmy Butler. So who are you talking about they should get?
I don't even know.
Klay Thompson is ideal.
I mean, like,
he's not going to leave.
Klay
He's
Thompson's
ideal.
the dream, but
They lose Durant, they'll throw the whole bus at him.
exactly. You're really praying for a total internal collapse from the Warriors, not just a Kevin Durant-related one. Off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of who's a free agent this year, and no one's really jumping out at me besides
Kyrie,
Klay.
KD. I mean, the
But
big
like
ones
those aren't realistic. You know what I mean? We can't give
Those guys
Kyrie or
aren't- those guys
KD,
aren't
you know, the
gonna
money
come
and stature and position in a team they're looking for. I'll get back to you. I guess it might have to be Jimmy Butler, much to my chagrin.
Listen, it's the path of least resistance.
Well, and they came out and said, like, Jimmy Butler's our guy. We want to bring
they
him
said
and
that.
Tobias back.
Of course. What
You
else
don't
they
have
gonna
to say
say?
that. You could just gloss over it and
Definitely
do
not
the
going to
hinky
say that
method.
when you traded for a guy that has an option to
They're like,
opt out.
yeah, you know, we're gonna take a look at what we have out there.
Yeah, and you know he'll say, okay, well, while you do that, I'm gonna take a look at what's out there for me because some team is gonna overpay for me.
Right.
Maybe LA because
Yeah.
they need another starter player with LeBron.
I
Yeah.
hope Jimmy Butler and Durant go to the Knicks and they really just hate
Oh,
each other.
my
I- That'd be fun.
He's
I
going
just
to
thought
blow
of it.
up
I just
some
thought of
locker
it.
room once he
Yeah.
gets that money in hand. Well, hopefully it's not the Sixers, but that's all that we have for Upon Further Review. Thank you, Sean. We're moving right along into tap outs. Max, you want to start us out?
The only thing I was going to say is just shout out to my alma mater, Temple University. Went to their final regular season game against UCF, which was Fran Dunphy's last home game, not this past Saturday, the week before. It was incredible atmosphere, really fun to be at. I hadn't been at any Temple sporting event since I graduated 3 years ago. And man, I really missed it. So going to that one game has really got me all, you know, full steam ahead for the tournament. I'm really, truly not even homerism. I really do like the Owls to win a playoff or play-in game, win a couple games of the tournament, really give Fran a nice send-off. The dude's done an incredible thing for the university, both on and off the court. So shout out to you, Coach Dunphy. Looking forward to Coach McKee next year. Definitely will be attending and watching games more regularly. If you don't have a horse in the race, Temple Owls, baby, all the way. That's all I'm going to say.
So before I get into my tap out, quick fun fact. I actually went to Fran Dunphy's basketball camp when I was like 11 years old when he was still at UPenn.
Okay.
And it was pretty dope. Got to meet him. She could say, he talked to me like I was a player on the team. Like,
Super
hey,
nice guy.
Super nice guy.
It is, right?
Listen.
My only Fran
nice
Dunphy
guy.
story is I ran into him once on the elevators going to the rec courts freshman year and never once crossed paths with him again. And I worked in the basketball courts the 3 years after that.
He
Never
said,
once-
who's this Mexican? I'm going to take the back entrance every time from now on.
Exactly.
All right, so for my tap out, ladies and gentlemen, we are officially T-minus 27 days and counting the Game of Thrones. If you are not watching Game of Thrones, I encourage you to go hide in whatever rock you were under and stay there for the duration of next season. Because that is all everybody's going to talk about on Sundays and probably Mondays too.
Mondays are
at the
way
water cooler
worse.
at work. Listen, it's way worse. And please don't be that person who watches it the night before and then ruins it for everybody. Don't be that guy, okay? That said, in the meantime, while you're waiting for it, American Gods has been out. We're now 2 episodes into season 2, and I have to say, so far, I'm pretty impressed with the storyline and how it's playing out. If you haven't gotten into that, get into that. That's on Starz. That's another one of my favorite shows. Took a long time to get to season 2, but I'm glad it's here. Just like it's taken a really long time to get to Game of Thrones, and I'm happy that we're now less than a month away. That's all I got.
Quick TV plug. If you want something a little bit more lighthearted after your hour of blood and gore of Game of Thrones,
Yes.
Crashing on HBO just finished officially. It was announced that it's going to be done after 3 seasons. Pete Holmes is a hilarious guy. Some of those stories are based on true stories, like his Christian wife cheating on him. But that's the first episode, so it's not major spoilers. If you like a good laugh, like I just gave ET, go check out Crashing for maybe 30 minutes of leisure and something a little bit more lighthearted after Game of Thrones.
All right. So real quick, I'll just end it out with another Fran Dunphy thank you, farewell. As a member of the Temple Owls Media, as
go to Temple, so.
a color commentator for the Penn women's team, Fran Dunphy's a guy who I see a lot, and I just want to say thank you, Fran, for the years that you've given Philadelphia, and thank you, the viewers, for tuning in. That's all that we have here for you guys on Trust the Process Live by My New Philly, where something's always new.
Everything's always Philly.
baby.
And remember, UC Irvine's a Cinderella this year, people. My Venmo's my name if you want to tip me.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
I love it. Love it.